I agree.
Hi, I'm Cameron Rebixo. Now I would like to present how electromagnetism is established through ether. Okay, ether is consisted of two subparticles. One is particularly sensitive to negative charge. If you put a negative charge here, those subparticles on ether will move away. If you, I call it those subparticles move away, neg off. I just make a simple word, negative something whatever off, because of the negative charge over here. But if you put the positive charge here, and then whatever the other kind of subparticle is moving off. But if the negative move away, the emptiness will be filled in by the positive. So that together, they keep the same intrinsic pressure of the ether. If you have a stronger negative charge, and then more negative will move away, but then more positive fill in. And again, the intrinsic pressure of the entire ether at this particular location maintain the same. When the intrinsic pressure of the ether maintain the same, it will not affect the value of the gravitational force as we analyzed in the previous slide. Okay, this is how electrical field is established. When you have two negative charge, you will have negative, the negative push away, and then but the positive will move in. Same here. The negative subparticle move away, but more positive fill in. This rho means the density of the positive. When I'm talking about their density, I don't mean their mass density, but I mean the numerical count. Because right now, at this moment, I don't have idea how to measure the mass of ether. So I can only use the concept of numerical count of the subparticles. So, given the situation between two negative charge, there are more positive in this space than negative. For this particular reason, because excessive positive and less negative, this negative charge will feel repelling force. If they move away, and then more negative can come back to this space, and keeping the balance between the negative and the positive to 1-to-1 proportion. and then go back to more neutral state. So to the next situation, if there is a positive charge here, and if there's a negative charge here, the situation is that for this positive charge, you have more negative surrounded, but less positive surrounded. The opposite situation will be with the negative charge. For the negative charge, you have more positive surrounded, less negative surrounded. So then in between, more positive and less positive mix up, but on the other hand also more negative and less negative also mix up. And then in this area, the pressure of both the positive and negative get less. That's why this positive charge and the negative charge feel a force pushing together, pushing them together. That's how electrical attractive force is established. Actually, it's not attractive force. It is the pressure difference between the environment, and so that they are pushed together. Okay, so if you replace the negative charge with positive charge, and also this negative charge replaced with positive charge, it means plus here, and the opposite subparticle is different. However, the same principle apply. Okay, so the two positive charge push each other away. Okay, so that's how electrical repellent force is established by ether. And over here, that's how electrical attractive force is established by ether. Actually, again, the attractive force is not a force. It is a force pushed together by the difference of the density difference between the negative and the positive. As to the quantitative analysis, I believe that the density of the negative and the density of positive obeys Gauss' law. That's how. In the conventional analysis, we use flux to apply these two equations. But over here, in replacing the flux, I use the density difference between the negative and the positive. And on this side, it means that the volume enclosed by a certain sphere contains so much negative and positive, so that the surface of the same sphere also get the same intensity of the electrical field. So in my opinion, the flux is a geometrical tool in analysis in the analysis of electrical field. It's a geometrical tool, means some line, but those lines actually does not exist. And this equation is more to the nature to be, because the density difference, the gradient of the density of the subparticle establish the electrical field and makes this equation hold. This picture shows how the ether will respond to the movement of the charge. By the way, in my analysis, I mainly use the behavior of a negative charge or electron for the illustration. However, you can replace it with positive charge or positron, applying the same principle, except the value is opposite. Okay, positive to negative, just swap the value, the absolute value. Okay, suppose we have ether surrounding all this entire area. When an electron moves to this distance, correspondingly, some distance down the road, the ether will, the subparticle, the negative or positive, will move accordingly, synchronizing very well with this electron. However, from here to here is not the negative move. It is the density distribution move. The density from here, when the electron moves from here, the density of the distribution of the negative also move from here. When the electron moves back, the density distribution also moves back. However, there's another thing we need to notice. When this density distribution moves back, further down the road, there are some density distribution also move accordingly, except with lower density. Okay? But the pattern is the same. Okay? And in other words, when the electron moves one cycle or move back and stop there, the ether distribution continue to move down the road. Okay? It means that further and further down the road, some impulse signal is received, except that the further away, the impulse signal is weaker. And by the same token, the ether distribution between these locations will work accordingly too. Okay, and when the electron is here, at A prime, there's certain distribution between the negative and positive. When the electron move over here, the distribution pattern from here also moved over here. When the electron stops at over here, the distribution stops here. However, the same information of the redistribution between the negative and the positive continue down the road to wherever, however far away, okay? But with weaker and weaker intensity. So if the electron moves and stops here, down the road, people receive an impulse. But if the electron moves here, down to here, and back here, we receive one cycle of electrical magnetic wave. If we move, if the electrons move back and forth multiple times, we have a wave of multiple hertz. If the electron move back and forth here in the frequency of visible light, further down people will receive light wave. So electrical magnetic wave just go down on the line like that. Okay. In other words, the electron did not move down here to deliver the light. It is the ether deliver the information down the line about the movement of this electron. Same on that direction. Also, people receive the information of the movement of this electron. On the opposite side, the same thing happened. Okay. But of course, at this point, we have not analyzed the magnetic wave yet. But it's how the, at least how the electrical frequency can be received down the line. The ether particle has certain volume and also must have certain shape. Because they are so closely packed together, when the electron move further down the line, some subparticle of the ether must be affected. When they are affected, they move to a certain extent. But when they move, there must be some pattern for them to move. To me, I imagine that because of the shape of the subparticle, when they move, they will slide on each other, the parts off and the neck off slide on each other and form some helical line. All DNA structure has a helical structure. There must be a reason to it. The reason in my imagination is that when some particle such as atom or molecule or radical move, they must choose an easy way to move, right? The lower energy to move. So when the moving energy finally dissipated to zero, they will find their logical state. That's how they find their place, their state. Their place distributed according to some helical line. But how the helical line is developed, we need to talk about some screw thread. Here's one screw rod, and that screw thread is the right hand screw turning. And here's another screw rod. Both I mark this as AB. When the AB flip down to the other reverse direction, A is here, B is here. However, the screw rod thread stay the same. You cannot distinguish which is which unless I mark it as A, B, and A, B here. So when you place them side by side or end to end, the screw thread maintain the same. So I will call this thread reversible thread. However, if the screw thread happen to have some thorn attached to it, the directional thorn, when you flip this upside down, you can immediately distinguish the two rods. They are not the same anymore. Right? So if you place the equal rods side by side, you cannot distinguish them. However, if you flip another one of them and place side by side, they cannot tolerate each other. Very possibly they have to repel each other. If you place them end to end, same thing happens. If you place the screw rod according to the same thorn direction, they will tolerate each other. In some way, they reinforce each other. But if you have another one flip and then place them end to end, they repel. Okay? So now I'm having a magnet here. Okay, that's the north end. This is south end, and each flux, with each of the magnetic flux, I assume it is consists of a lot of the sectional screw thread like this. Okay, and for this magnet and this magnet, when placed together, got close to each other, and on the top and at the bottom, they have some section repelling each other. And of course, if this two magnets not strong, you can force and push them together very closely. And then gradually, for example, if this is getting very close to the center of the bar, you would feel a stronger and stronger repelling force, because this section and this section are not the same as far as running direction or screw thread. Of course, and this section and this section, they repel already. And on this diagram, two magnet bars are placed side by side, but with the poles oriented differently. So when they get close to each other, this section and this section repelling each other. However, this few section and this few section are almost the same running direction, so they have a certain magnitude of attraction. But so-called attraction is just more harmonically not repelling. Now, on this combination, we have two magnet bars placed end to end, and it is quite easy to see that the running direction of those screw threads are very harmonic to each other, and so they will not repel as strong as this one. Okay, this I place the two magnet bar end to end, but with different orientation of the pole. And very easily we can see that the running direction of the screw thread are opposite to each other, means repelling to each other. and this also repelling to each other. This also repelling to each other. That's how magnet force establish their attraction and repelling. Okay. So I apply those screw rod idea to the collection of many flux of the magnetic field. This is one major group of the magnetic field. In other words, in the magnet bar itself, those screw threads tightly squeezed together with more tight, smaller diameter of the helix, and also more turn of the helix, helical turning. And if the diameter of the helix is smaller, it means stronger magnetic force. Or if more turn in the unit length of the axial line, and it also means stronger magnetic force. Besides, when those flux are more and more away from this magnetic body, the turning of the helix line will be more relaxed, gradually relaxed. If it is far away from this bar in this area, maybe the equivalent column to this will be very relaxed. In that case, you will detect very weak magnetic force over here. And generally, you cannot really distinguish one magnetic flux from another. All I can say is that the magnetic flux collection is like this. A very big cable, which is twisted, is formed by some twisted loop, smaller, and each twisted loop also formed by some twisted twine. And then the twisted twine is formed by some twisted string. And then the twisted string is further consisted of some twisted fiber. That's all I can say. Now, this statement is what my statement just made. So, because the magnetic loop can loop back to itself perfectly, we have no magnetic monopole. We don't need this concept for the electrical, for the magnetic field to generate. And if we try to find magnetic monopole, I believe we have to waste time. The reason that this magnetic flux will be looped back to itself is because the high intrinsic pressure of the ether. If a certain magnetic field need to go back there, go further, for example, the intrinsic pressure, the high intrinsic pressure of the ether will try to untwist it. Okay? So it cannot go any further. It has to find a weaker place to go. And gradually, over here, the same thing. If it want to go further over here, the intrinsic pressure of the ether want to return it to normal state. So this twist has to come back to a certain place, and gradually it finds the best place to go back. that should loop back to itself. Okay, now we are going to study an electron moving along this axis. Okay? Because the ether fluid is so tightly packed. When the electron moves, it is impossible for an electron not to affect the arrangement of the ether. It must agitate some movement of the ether. When the ether is moved, okay, it will move along some helical direction, as I mentioned before. But since the helical direction, the helical arrangement must loop back itself, it means that around its path, the path of the electron, but around some helical arrangement of the ether, blood must appear. Then, since those helical loop loop back to itself, okay, so it means that further away from the electron, you have helical line with a bigger diameter looping around the electron. The further away from it, the more relaxed is the helical line, looping it back. Indeed, this is only one of the plane I draw just across the center of the electron. In front of the electron, there are many infinite, in the infinite plane of similar plane can be drawn, except that further away from the electron, the more relaxed those helical would be. You can find the similar infinite plane behind this plane over in the area too, similar situation. Okay? Now, we are going to place a magnet below this moving electron. From this magnet, all this magnetic flux pointing out. Okay? But those arrangement, the helical arrangement from the electrons' movement has only one direction of circulation. So only one section of this loop is in the same direction as the magnet flux. On the other side of the same loop, the direction must be different. So in other words, as far as this loop is concerned, this section of the loop and the flux of the from the magnet cannot tolerate each other, so they must expel each other. At the same time, on this side, because the loop and the flux are in the same direction, they tolerate well. Okay? So, in other words, as far as this plane is concerned, this side of the plane must move forward because of the expelling force. On this side, there's no such repelling force. So, with all the forces considered together, the electron must move away from this x-axis. Experience tells us that with this setup, this electron has to move toward the negative end of the y-axis. That's how electron or the conductor, when there's a current, they must move sideways from the direction of the current. And I believe so far I have not found any theory can explain why electroconductor must move sideways from the magnetic field. But with this, I believe it explains very well. Okay. Now we are going to go to the concept to say why the photon is self-refuted. And the mainstream believe that photon is the energy packet of light. Because it is packet, it means that there must be spatial separation between packet. If there's no spatial separation between packet, it means that the whole light beam is one. There's no photon. So it rejects the photons concept right there. But if there is space separation, it means that this light beam has interference of other wave at a lower frequency. If that is the case, each light beam must carry beam. It means that every so often you will see some dark spot on the light beam, but we never see this for any light beam unless it's made as an impulse, but is something else, and that is a special arrangement. It's not the nature of the light. So the photon itself cannot exist. So from all the previous analysis, we are going to move to the next concept about photoelectric effect. I believe this setup is very familiar to everyone. The light coming in this direction, but the electron move to that direction. The conventional explanation or the mainstream explanation is that because the electron absorb the energy of the light or the momentum of the photon, that's why they fly off. But what is the process of the absorption, and how do they convert the moving direction, the light, to the opposite direction of the electron? They never explain this. As a matter of fact, if we go a little further thinking, I believe we can find that their explanation is violating even the most fundamental physics principle. Just like this: if I play billiard ball, I hit the ball with a cue. With the conventional explanation from the mainstream, it means that the billiard ball, after hit, it should come to me. It is unacceptable, right? Okay. So in other words, for the electron to be able to move to the opposite direction of the light, there must be something playing the role to convert the direction, the reverse direction. Very obviously, with their diagram, we don't even have to have light, but electrons just move, just fly off at this inverse voltage range. So, in other words, as soon as there's light, we don't even need the battery here for the electron to move away in some situation. Okay. So there must be something other than just simple absorption or absorption of energy or momentum. Okay, to mention what I mean about the mechanism of reverse direction, I just use this simple analogy here. If B is hit by A, the only way for it is to go this direction. Right? But now, because of this seesaw setup, when A hits this end of the seesaw, B will go up. It means that in the photoelectric effect, there is some third party there to play the role to reverse the direction, just like the seesaw in this setup. So we remember this picture just few slides ago. Okay. So when the light coming in this direction, it means that some electron is moving over here to send this light wave to this electron for it to move. When the electron move, it has two directions. One is going to the nucleus, but moving to the nucleus, the Aether density is getting higher and higher. It's difficult for this electron to continue to move. But if the electron on this end moves in that direction, this electron also moves in this direction. Moving in this direction, it feels a little easier, okay? Because going that direction, that Aether density is getting lower and lower, and the resistance for its movement is getting reduced, okay? Here is one of the tricks. When the electron is moving either toward the nucleus or away from nucleus, all those Aether particles can only leave a certain place for the electron to stay. In this setup, the electron can only stay at those places that where a circle is found, but cannot stay at where the cross is found because of the formidable pressure from all over. Okay? Staying here is unstable. Staying here is more stable. But from this distance to this distance is not any value that can be found in an interval, a continuous interval. It must be some discrete number of distance. That's how some discrete physical quantity can be found. Okay? And I call this place as quantum pit. Okay, and I will further address on that later. And the quantum pit is the source of some discrete number. But of course, this picture is only a metaphor. I'm not sure whether the particle is rectangular shape or in spherical shape. Okay, I only use this picture to emphasize that Aether particle has a size, has a distance, so it can only leave a certain room for the electron to stay, and making a lot of measurement of the physical quantity expressed as with discrete number. Can I continue?
You're at 45 45 minutes already.
Okay. Okay, I will continue next.
It's up to you, if you're going to do one.
No, I leave it because I still have, I can still use the time from the next section to cover this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if anybody has a question, real quick. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take only one since we don't have time. Go ahead.
Yes, one must appreciate the tremendous amount of work
Thank you.
you must have put in developing your ether theory. In this theory, what is has your ether theory any place for permittivity and permeability of space as contained in Maxwell's equations? In other words, can you derive an expression for the speed of light in terms of some properties of your ether?
Okay. I did not go into that work, but given that how insanely high pressure the ether, if you have some vibration here that created by electron, it must go with a very high speed to the other end. Okay. And I believe the speed of light, or the intrinsic pressure of the ether will play a critical role, just like the density of the air play a critical role in determining the speed of sound. But I did not go into that. Sorry. I'm sure if people accept what I say, some able men will do that work very easily. Yeah. It is beyond me. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.